My name is Camille Novak, and I'm 29 years old. Competence, in my world, isn't loud. It's choreography. Habits stack so tight they become gravity. At 12:01 a.m., the dishwasher shifts to off-peak because I taught it the rhythm of my electric bill. The last cell in my budget turns green, steady as a heartbeat. My condo, deed and utilities in my name, breathe steady. Ballast I built one decision at a time. No one toasts ballast. You only notice it when the boat lurches. Tonight it lurched. Adrian, my boyfriend of 4 years, had that loose smile that meant someone had already poured him one too many drinks. Dinner had been ordinary. Light, laughter, a shared dessert. 6 hours later, I sat in my quiet apartment, staring at my phone when the message came. I need space. Don't call. Don't text. Don't exist for a while. I'll reach out when I'm ready to talk. No explanation. No context. My heart stopped. Then accelerated. Then froze in disbelief. I reread it 3 times. The words echoed, mechanical and cold. Something felt deliberate. I walked into the bedroom and noticed the subtle evidence. Adrian's overnight bag missing, a few shirts gone from the closet, his toothbrush absent from the bathroom. He had packed while I was at work, sent the text knowing I couldn't confront him. 4 years of shared life reduced to a single, chilling demand. Don't exist. I sank onto the couch, the one he insisted we pick out together. Around me, every object whispered memories. The throw pillows he convinced me we needed. Picture frames of trips and birthdays. The coffee maker he gave me for my birthday. The watch he surprised me with on our anniversary. Every corner of my home bore his fingerprints, proof of our life together, proof of his existence in my world. And now he wanted it gone. If he wanted me to not exist, I would honor it. The first box went in the living room. Throw pillows, picture frames, books he had left behind. Each one packed meticulously, labeled with sharp precision. Box after box, until the living room looked less like a home and more like a staging ground for a memory he no longer wanted me to share. The bedroom was harder. Shirts, ties, the cologne he loved, cufflinks, the leather jacket I once admired. Gifts, memories, moments all tangled together. I uncovered relics I had forgotten existed. Movie ticket stubs from our first date, a journal he never used, concert tickets from a summer we called ours. Even the coupon book he had made me for Valentine's Day 3 years ago. Back rubs, breakfast in bed, a free choice of movie, untouched, saved for later that never came. By noon, I had 27 boxes packed. My heart felt heavier with each one, but I wasn't done. I moved on to my phone, screenshots of every sweet text he had ever sent over the years, the promises, the plans, the vacations, the discussions about future children and the house we would one day call ours, printed them out on my crappy home printer. 186 pages. Into another box they went. The closet offered one last surprise, a memory box he had insisted we keep, pressed flowers from our first date, wristbands from music festivals, the cork from the wine bottle when he said, "I love you," for the first time. Box 35. Finally, the kitchen. Matching mugs with our initials. The apron he insisted was cute. The knife set he bought after I offhandedly mentioned I liked cooking. The spice rack, organized and labeled. 40 boxes in total. Every piece of him returned. Every trace of our past life now contained, ready to be delivered. I stood in the middle of the apartment, surrounded by a towering forest of cardboard and memories, and exhaled. The apartment, once a shared life, had become a mausoleum of our history. Tomorrow I would deliver it all. Tomorrow I would give him exactly what he asked for, infinite space. I sat down on the couch for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the soft click of the clock. My mind raced with questions. How could someone erase 4 years with a text? How could love be condensed into a single instruction? Don't exist? And yet, in that moment, I felt a strange clarity. I had built my life carefully, deliberately. The boxes were heavy, yes, but they were mine to move, mine to control. The boat may have lurched, but I was still at the helm. Tomorrow, the real journey would begin. The morning air was crisp as I backed the trailer up to Adrian's parents' suburban driveway. Natalie, Adrian's ex-girlfriend, was staying here while trying to figure things out. according to the text messages I had intercepted. Their neighborhood was quiet, lined with maple trees and perfectly trimmed lawns, the kind of place where everyone noticed when a leaf fell out of place. I climbed down from the truck, stretching my back. 40 boxes, 40 memories, 40 reminders that someone had tried to erase me. The sheer absurdity of it made my chest tighten with equal parts anger and amusement. I started unloading, stacking boxes 3 wide, multiple rows deep, a wall that spanned the driveway from the garage to the street. Each box was labeled meticulously, a catalog of our past. Anniversary gifts, 2019. Concert tickets, summer 2020. Valentine's coupons, unused. By the time the last box went down, I stepped back and surveyed my work. The driveway looked impenetrable, a fortress of memory, a visual representation of the command I'd been given. Don't exist. I could hear movement behind the front door before I even rounded the corner. Deb, Natalie's mother, appeared, her mouth open in shock, eyes wide at the sight of a wall of cardboard. "Camille, what is the meaning of this?" she screeched. "Hi, Deb," I said calmly. "Natalie asked for space. I'm simply returning everything she ever gave me so she can have it." "These aren't your belongings, they're hers." "Yes," I said, gesturing to the boxes, "but they're also reminders of her. You don't want me to exist, remember? Hard to do that when your stuff is literally blocking my life. I'm just honoring her request." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't speak. I climbed back into the truck to finish organizing the last row, feeling a mix of vindication and disbelief. The absurdity only escalated when Robert, Adrian's father, showed up. He was massive, built like a linebacker, the kind of man whose handshake alone could leave bruises. "You're going to move these boxes today," he said, voice low and dangerous. "No, I'm not," I replied evenly. "These are gifts she gave me. I'm returning them because she wants space. They're on your property now. Your problem." His face turned red. "You humiliated her. I don't exist, remember?" I interrupted. "I'm simply following instructions." He clenched his fists, stepping closer. "I'll move them myself and dump them on your doorstep." "Please do," I said sweetly, leaning back slightly. "I'll call the police for illegal dumping if you touch my boxes." He raised his fist. I stood perfectly still, calm. "Go ahead, Robert. Hit me. Press charges. That'll look great for your construction business." He stormed off, muttering under his breath. I exhaled, climbed into my truck, and checked the boxes one last time. By noon, I had driven home, where the apartment manager was waiting, looking confused. "Ma'am, we received a complaint about abandoned property," she began. "Yes," I said. "I did a massive declutter. My apartment has never been cleaner." Her eyebrows shot up, skeptical, but she left shaking her head. The text messages began shortly after. An unknown number. Becca, Natalie's sister, reaching out to explain that Natalie only asked for space because someone at work, Kyle, was pursuing her. She needed time to figure out what she wanted. My hands curled around the phone. Space granted, I thought, permanently. By the evening, Natalie herself was calling, arguing that she hadn't asked for all of this, that I was being petty, that the boxes needed to be moved immediately. I didn't respond. I hadn't existed for her, after all. The tension built, and social media had yet to explode. Friends, family, neighbors, everyone was watching. But for now, I felt a grim satisfaction. I had obeyed the instructions, maintained my moral high ground, and let the absurdity of the situation play out in full view of the world. Tomorrow, the chaos would escalate. I could feel it in the quiet of the night, the way the streetlights flickered over the cardboard wall I had created. But tonight, I had space, and for the first time in hours, I let myself breathe. By the next morning, the world had shifted. Social media had erupted. Natalie had posted a long statement, painting herself as the victim of emotional manipulation. Friends piled on with comments about toxic behavior, gaslighting, and abuse. Every notification on my phone felt like a small explosion. I scrolled through, unbothered, taking notes. Every accusation, every exaggeration, every half-truth. I had documented all of it. Texts, receipts, photographs of every box, every gift, every printed memory. For every narrative she spun, I had evidence. The absurdity was almost poetic. Natalie had demanded space, and I had delivered exactly that, wrapped in cardboard and labeled meticulously. And now I was being called abusive for following instructions. The next escalation came via her friends and family. Becca, Natalie's sister, reached out repeatedly, asking if I still had the coupon book. They wanted sentimental items returned, as though the universe owed them anything beyond the boxes in the driveway. I ignored the messages. My boundary was clear. I didn't exist for her, and neither would I for anyone else interfering in this chaos. Meanwhile, Adrian's friends weighed in. Kyle, the coworker Becca had mentioned, seemed oblivious to the full timeline until I confronted him at a gas station. He looked uncomfortable as I recounted events, how 4 years of cohabitation, gifts, memories, and printed texts had culminated in 40 boxes on his ex-parents' driveway. His face went pale as I showed him the timeline, the texts, the exact dates of her request for space. "She moved in with me last week," Kyle admitted, voice low. "Told me you'd been abusive. That's why she needed somewhere safe to stay." I laughed. Full, unapologetic, belly-deep laughter. Kyle blinked, confused, then angry, then utterly defeated. Natalie had played herself, 4 years of history, reduced to a stunt to manipulate space, control, and sympathy. The police got involved, of course. At first, a simple call about stolen property, misinterpreted by someone in the neighborhood. When officers arrived, I calmly explained the situation. Everything in the boxes was hers. I was returning it to her parents. I had receipts, photographs, and her original request for space. The officers nodded, sighed, and left. Civil matter, not criminal. Legal threats escalated next. Natalie demanded the return of gifts in dollar amounts, totaling over $8,000. She sent an itemized list via her friend's Instagram, complete with leather jacket, coffee maker, gaming headset, wristwatch. Legal action was threatened if payment wasn't made within 7 days. I forwarded the list to my cousin, a paralegal, who laughed for 5 straight minutes. Gifts do not constitute debts. Courts would laugh her out the door. Even her mother, Deb, began a campaign to undermine me, calling my employer, alleging instability and danger. I provided every piece of evidence, texts, police reports, videos. HR concluded I was the victim, warning that any further harassment would result in legal action against the caller. Robert, Adrian's father, tried one more intimidation attempt, showing up at a friend's house. A restraining order prevented further harassment from family members. Through it all, I maintained a sense of calm control, documenting, observing, and allowing the absurdity of entitlement to collapse under its own weight. The 40 boxes in Natalie's parents' driveway became symbols of the chaos she had orchestrated, slowly succumbing to weather, neighbors' complaints, and eventually HOA fines. Even in the middle of public scrutiny, false accusations, and financial threats, I felt a quiet satisfaction. I had adhered to boundaries, honored requests, and remained steadfast in my own truth. And through it all, one thing became clear. 4 years of shared life cannot be erased by social media posts, entitlement, or a single text. Evidence, clarity, and calm resilience are stronger than any manufactured narrative. By the end of the week, the social media storm had begun to die down. Friends and onlookers who had initially condemned me started deleting their comments once they saw the documented truth. I had been vindicated, not through confrontation or argument, but through meticulous preservation of facts, patience, and the unwavering belief in my own integrity. I sat in my apartment one evening, looking at the empty space that had once held 4 years of shared life, thinking, this is the first time in a long time that I feel in control. The boxes, the confrontation, the absurdity, they were all behind me. Tomorrow the final act would unfold. Closure, legal resolution, and reclaiming the life and space that was always mine. Weeks later, the legal system caught up to the chaos. Trespassing charges had been filed, restraining orders issued, and the 40 boxes, once a fortress of memory in Natalie's parents' driveway, had become a symbol of justice delayed, but ultimately delivered. Natalie's lawyer tried to argue residency rights, claiming she still had access to the property, but the text messages, her own forwarding of mail, and the original "I need space" demand made it crystal clear. She had moved out. The plea deal was simple: misdemeanor trespassing, probation, restraining order. She could no longer contact me, and I could no longer engage with her. Finally, the apartment, my sanctuary, was truly mine again. I changed the locks, reclaimed every corner of my home, and even the lingering traces of chaos, hoodies, mugs, and other sentimental debris were gone or replaced. The leather jacket I had loved still missed, but a small price for reclaiming control. Social media had quieted. The misinformation, the accusations, the manufactured narratives, silenced by facts, evidence, and patience. Even Deb's harassment campaign collapsed when HR investigated and concluded I was the victim, armed with every documented proof. The world could watch, but I was no longer entangled in it. Adrian had faded to a background figure, his presence optional. I didn't need to explain my actions, justify my existence, or bow to anyone else's version of reality. I had spent weeks, months even, meticulously reclaiming my life, and finally, the emotional weight began to lift. The 40 boxes, weathered, wet, moldy, slowly became the responsibility of the HOA. Fines accrued, a silent message that chaos left unchecked comes at a cost. Natalie had asked for space. I had granted it in full. The irony was delicious, and I allowed myself a quiet laugh at the absurdity of it all. I reflected on the lessons hidden in the storm. Boundaries are worth enforcing. Self-respect is non-negotiable, and the past, no matter how entangled in emotion, does not dictate the future. The world may try to rewrite your story, but facts, persistence, and composure protect your narrative better than any argument. I began reclaiming routines that had slipped. Guitar playing resumed, Netflix binges restarted on my schedule, sleep uninterrupted by worry. My mother called weekly, checking in. My friends offered laughter and companionship. I even started a bowling league with Dennis. Terrible at it, but thoroughly enjoyable. And there, in the quiet moments between absurdity and triumph, I realized I had learned something deeper. Space, true space, is not just physical. It is emotional, mental, and legal. I had claimed mine, box by box, text by text, action by action. Natalie had wanted me to not exist, and in granting her that, I found myself fully alive. Yes, I missed some things, a leather jacket here, a memory there, but the cost was tiny compared to the freedom gained. I existed on my own terms now, not as someone else's reflection, not as a pawn in manipulation or entitlement. I smiled, thinking of the 40 boxes, the absurd driveway, the social media storm, the legal wrangling, and the emotional labor it took to reach this point. I didn't exist for her anymore. I existed for me. And honestly, that had never felt so good.